Hi, I'm Rebecca from engVid. Welcome back. Today you're going to learn 10 common expressions that all have only 2 words and they all start with the word at. Now, you're saying to yourself, 10 expressions? Oh my gosh, can I really learn 10 expressions in one lesson? Yes, you can, because I'm going to make it so easy for you. Okay, what are we going to do? I'm going to tell you exactly what they are. I'm going to show you how to pronounce them as expressions and also in a sentence. All right, I'm going to tell you what they mean and we're going to use them. You're going to learn how to use them not only while you're speaking, but also in writing in the correct way. And I'm giving you lots and lots of examples, okay, so that you really understand what they mean and you can start using some of them right away. Okay, are you ready? Let's get started. So here first on our first board, we have 4 of them. They are, you can repeat after me, at first, at last, at best, and at worst. Okay? Now, as we go through the sentences, I'll show you exactly how we kind of tend to use them, okay, in an actual sentence. So let's look at the examples first and understand what they mean. So the expression at first, what does it mean? It means in the beginning, initially, okay? Right at the start. Something that you felt or something that you thought or something that happened in the beginning, okay? So, for example, at first, she enjoyed living in the city. Now, in this kind of sentence, and even from the way that I was saying it, you can tell that probably something different is going to happen afterward. It could be that something was positive first and it became negative afterwards. It could be that something was negative first and it became positive afterwards, okay? There's usually some kind of contrast that we're going to suggest when we use this expression at first. It tells you that at first, da-da-da, but then later, da-da-da, okay? So, at first, she enjoyed living in the city. Now, we expect to hear that, but later, she decided that she enjoyed living in a small town much more, okay? We expect to hear something like that. We don't have to hear it, but we expect to hear something like that at some point. Or another example. At first, I thought the exam was difficult, but once I got through it, I realized it wasn't that bad after all. Okay? You see what I mean? So here you have an example of something where someone thought that something was negative first, but actually it turned out to be much more positive. And in the first one, somebody thought something was positive first and then turned out to be negative. So it doesn't matter which way you use it. All we're saying when we use at first is that in the beginning, you thought a certain way, you felt a certain way, something happened in a certain way. Okay? All right. So that's at first. Let's look at the next example. At last. Now, first of all, this expression is interesting and it's a little bit different from the other ones because you can actually use this expression by itself. As in, at last. It means finally. Okay? But usually we say this expression, we use this expression at last when we've been waiting for something to happen for a long time and then finally it happens. So imagine a situation where you're waiting to hear from somebody that you really love and you haven't heard from them for too long and you're a little bit worried and tense, and then they call and they finally call and you're so relieved and you're like, oh, thank heavens. And you say, at last. So sometimes we just say that, oh, at last. It means finally, okay? So that way we can use it by itself, okay? Or you're waiting for a letter or you're waiting for your passport to arrive before you go abroad, okay? You finally get it and you say, oh, at last, okay? So it's usually a sigh of relief, you're happy, okay? You're relieved, that kind of thing. But let's see how we could use it in a sentence. At last, he found a job. So let's say this person was waiting and looking for a job for a long time, and at last, he found a job. See how I'm saying it? At last, he found a job. Okay, say it after me. At last, he found a job. All right? So that's kind of the intonation of that expression. Or, at last, the ambulance arrived. Now, I mentioned to you that usually we use this when we've been waiting for a long time. Now, in a situation like this, maybe you weren't waiting for a really long time, but if somebody is critically ill or injured, you feel like it's a long time. So all that matters is not technically how long you were waiting, but just how you felt. So maybe you felt that it took a long time for the ambulance to come. So you say, oh, at last the ambulance has arrived. Okay? It could be anything. It doesn't have to be the ambulance. At last the bus arrived. You're waiting in the rain and you're cold and you're wet. And at last the bus arrived. Okay? Or at last the flight departed or flight left. Okay? After many delays. That kind of thing. Okay? Something finally happens after a long wait. That's the meaning. Okay. Next. We have two more. They kind of go together. At best and at worst. So at best means if the most positive thing happens, or looking at it in the most optimistic way, and this one is the opposite. If the most negative thing happens, okay, or looking at it in the most negative way, then something. For example, at best, or looking at it in the most positive way, at best, you'll pass the exam. So let's look at this situation. Somebody hasn't really studied enough and they're really worried and they're afraid they're going to fail. They don't know whether to go for the exam, not go. So you think that they are pretty well prepared. So you want to encourage them and you say, look, why don't you just go? At best, you'll pass the exam and maybe everything will be okay. That means in the most positive light. Or you could say, or at worst, you'll have to retake the exam. Okay? At best, you'll pass. At worst, you'll have to retake it. All right? Got that? Or let's say, look at another example. At best, our team will win the gold medal. Okay? Our team is going to win the gold at best. Or at worst, we'll get the silver medal. Not so bad. Okay? All right? So those are the two expressions, at best and at worst. Got it? All right, so now let's look at a few more. So the next two are at least and at most. At least means the lowest amount or the lowest quantity of something, okay? And at most means the greatest quantity or the greatest amount of something. For example, I need at least 20 minutes. Let's say somebody invited you out. Oh, there's a party tonight. Come on, let's go. And you say, okay, sure, but I need at least 20 minutes to get ready. Okay? At least means that much time at a minimum. This is like a minimum. This is like the maximum. Okay? You can also think of it that way. At least means the minimum. At most means the maximum. Okay? So I need at least 20 minutes. The next one, sorry. At most, we need 2 employees to work overtime tonight. Okay? So that's an example that the maximum number that we need is this, or the maximum quantity. Okay? At most, it will take 2 weeks to finish this project. All right? Something like that. You can use it in so many different contexts, okay? And all of these expressions, you can actually use them in your everyday life. You can use them at school. You can use them at work. You can use them in any context. And that's why it's so useful to know them, because we are able to use them in so many different ways, okay? All right. Let's look at another pair. At dawn and at dusk. Now, perhaps you know these words. Perhaps you don't. I'll explain them to you. So dawn is the time of day when the sun rises. And dusk is the time of day when the sun sets. Okay? So at dawn, when light is just starting to come into the sky, be careful. So here we could say, she wakes up at dawn. Okay? I don't wake up at dawn, but she wakes up at dawn because she likes to meditate early in the morning. Okay? She's a very spiritual person. She wakes up at dawn. Okay, so again, at dawn means when the sun is rising. The opposite, at dusk. Be careful when driving at dusk. So dusk is like twilight time when the sun is kind of setting. It's also considered a time when you have to be very careful if you're driving because the light is changing. Sometimes artificial lights haven't started to come on yet, and yet the natural light is getting less. And so you have to be very careful when you're driving at dusk. Okay? Say it after me. At dawn, at dusk, at least, at most. Good. All right. Next. Now these are just 4 others. They don't go in pairs or anything. Okay. So here's one. It's pretty easy to understand. At birth. Birth is when you're born. Okay. So here's an example. He had gray eyes at birth. That means when he was born, he had gray eyes. Okay. Or you could say she weighed 7 pounds at birth. Okay. So whenever somebody is born, we can use this expression at birth. At the moment that person was born. The baby was born. Okay. Next, at fault. This means whose mistake was it? Whose fault was it? Okay. Who made the error? Who made the mistake? So for example, who was at fault? Let's suppose it's a situation where there's an accident. Okay, there's a car accident and then the police come in and they try to figure out what happened, because what are the police actually trying to find out? They're trying to find out who was at fault, who made the mistake. Okay, sometimes nobody is at fault. Maybe there was something else. Maybe the lights weren't working. Maybe something happened. But usually somebody might be at fault, and the police are going to try to establish who was at fault. Okay, so this is sort of like a little bit of a formal expression to say whose mistake was it. Okay, next, at present. This is also a slightly more formal way of saying now. At present means now. For example, in a business situation, let's say somebody's applying, looking for a job. So he calls and says, do you have any jobs available? And the answer is, I'm sorry, we have no vacancies at present. Okay? Could be for a job. It could be for an apartment that you're looking for in a particular building. No vacancy means no empty position, no empty spot. Or in an apartment, it could be no empty apartment. Okay? We have no vacancies at present. At present, just like the present tense, which you know and you must have studied, at present just means right now. Okay? So it's a formal expression. All right. And the last one here is at random. At random means there's no pattern. There's no pattern that's followed. There's no system that's followed. Just by chance. Okay? So, for example, I chose the lottery ticket numbers at random. Okay? I didn't follow any particular system. Some people choose the birthdays or anniversaries or special days, or they have some lucky numbers when they're choosing their lottery ticket numbers. But this person says, I chose the lottery ticket numbers at random with no particular system or pattern. Okay? At random. Okay? So here you had another 8. Here you had the first 4. 1 at first, at last, remember? At best, at worst. Okay? So these are always a little bit more challenging because we don't have that preposition at in every language, as I said. And that's what makes it a little bit more challenging. But I think if you learn the expression and you see the examples and you write your own examples, you'll find it actually very easy. And don't worry about the preposition at. Just learn the whole expression and then it makes sense. Okay? And you need to practice it at least a few times in order to learn them. Okay? So what you can do is go to our website at www.engvid.com. There you can do a quiz on these. Okay? And you can also, in the comments section, use one of these expressions to write some sentence about yourself, about your own life. Okay? That will help you to start using it right away. It's not enough. It's good to learn and the meaning of something so you understand what other people are saying, but it's even better if you can bring these expressions into your active vocabulary, right? And start actually using them yourself in your own writing and in your speaking and so on. Okay, so do that. And also, don't forget to subscribe so you can get lots of other lessons to help you learn English more quickly and more easily. All right. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now. All the best with your English. Bye.